to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Sean. What's going on, fellas?
Good,
What's
yo.
good? What's good?
What is good? Apologies for missing last week. That is on me. But a lot to talk about here. We've obviously had the NFL Combine last week. Some major NBA news that we got today. A major trade in the NFL, along with some other trades in the NFL that has happened over the past few days as well. As we gear up for free agency starting on Monday, so a lot to get into today, but we got to start with. I don't even know what's the biggest news of the day, but to show him respect as a former champion, I keep wanting to say Jonathan Tatum. Jayson Tatum is returning to the NBA, returning to the Celtics this Friday. Well, potentially this Friday. And in his return from his Achilles injury last playoffs, we obviously have talked about it a little bit. But what are you guys' thoughts now that we officially know that he is coming back and will officially be playing this season?
I mean, for me, Celtics fan, I'm excited. I don't expect too much. Obviously, the first couple weeks he's gonna obviously, ramp it up or whatever, get his feet up under him. So I mean, anybody to believe that at this point in time he's making any like real big plays or whatever during the game. I mean, you're crazy for thinking that, in my opinion. But I mean, this is perfect timing for him to ramp up for a possible playoff run. But I'm just excited to see him back on the court, man. I mean, we all know that injury is a crazy injury, and to even be able to get back on the court at this time frame and being not obviously you won't be 100% yourself, but even being close to being yourself it would be an amazing accomplishment. So I mean, shout out to him. Prayers that good health from the rest of the season. But I mean, it's happy to, and I mean, it's one of the people in the games that we want to consider top five. Could possibly type of face of the league player. And so just to see those type of players back in our game, back in the game in general, is a good thing to see. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of lean towards. Is like it's good for the game for him to be back. It's funny, because expectations going into the season are a lot different than how they are now, and how much that played a part in him wanting to come back. You see your team as a 2 seed, you're like, oh shit, like we got a shot, like for real. Compared directly to a player like Dame and Hallie, but Dame, where it's like, let's not even like push it. You know what I mean? Let's just focus on next year. So his team had a lot to do with that, I'm sure. And he's been with them. He's been watching them the whole season. It'll be interesting to see, like you said, Chris, like how the ramp up is. He has enough time. This is a fantastic time to come back. You have a month left in the season. You got time to truly ramp up, to get to where you're playing 30 minutes a game, to where you're ready for the playoffs, if everything goes smoothly, of course. So honestly, yeah, great for the game. Good to see him back. Just in time to boost, ratings down the stretch for all the major networks. But yeah, shout out to Jayson Tatum for getting back so quick. And it, like you said, it can be tricky with Achilles injuries. You never really know how good he will be, how quick he will be, if he'll be confident. I really think that's the big thing too with Achilles injuries. As y'all know, it's the confidence, especially in this sport, with the planting and taking off. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, this should be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely good to see him back, even though I do kind of wish that he, would take the full year off just because it's how tough the injury is. And we've seen, other guys come back pretty quickly and they not look necessarily the same. Some of them a little older, obviously, Kobe Bryant is somebody, we feel like when you talk about Jayson Tatum, that name somehow always comes up because he's a lifelong fan of Kobe, but he was one of the guys that came back pretty quickly. And hearing some of the stories from some of his former teammates, it sounds like I know Lou Will recently spoke about it. I don't think Kobe really planned to retire after he came back from his Achilles injury, but once he started getting going, it was like I don't know if I got this anymore. So, he came back pretty quickly, and I am a little nervous about that. But like you said, a guy that I think personally is a top 5 player in the league. Obviously, prior to this season, but good to see him back. Hopefully, he does stay healthy. As you mentioned, Cass, they are the 2 seed right now. and probably going to be the 2 seed getting into the playoffs as well in the Eastern Conference. And I actually, I honestly think that they kind of need him. They haven't, aside from the Cavs, they've won every single game against the Cavs, and they have their 4th game this Sunday. They haven't really had a good record against anybody that you would consider contenders. They have a losing record against the Knicks. They're 1-3 against the Pistons, who are the number 1 team in the East, obviously, and probably if they're going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals or get through to the finals, the team that they're going to have to go through. They haven't had. I don't think they've beaten Denver. They haven't played the Thunder yet. I don't think they've beaten the Spurs yet this season. So some of the teams that you start looking at as contenders, they've kind of, even though they've had the record that they've had, they've kind of struggled against them. So I do think that it's a mixture of obviously him wanting to come back, him wanting to kind of prove, because the conversation has started ramping up again about whose team is it JB or if it's JT's team. I do think that he's probably also maybe trying to gun for some respect, because it doesn't seem like he necessarily gets the respect that he deserves, not only from the national media, but we've also had some former players say some things about him that, in the media as well. So I do think that could possibly be a factor in it as well. But like I said, we don't know officially if he's going to play tomorrow, but that's all things are leaning towards tomorrow. So either we get him tomorrow or he makes his debut on Sunday on national television, which I think would be good against the Cavs again. So I do think that, like I said, I'm a little nervous about it just because it's a quick turnaround. But, if anybody can do it, I would trust that, Jayson Tatum would be able to do it. But to your point, Cass, it is a little funny how we basically haven't talked about Tyrese Haliburton at all. His injury happened, obviously some weeks later, but it hasn't been like a peep about him. Like, it was pretty much set in stone that he wasn't going to play this season. Same with Dame. And Dame is obviously a little older. But I do think it's just a bit curious that we haven't even – I don't even know when's the last time we've gotten an update on Tyrese Haliburton.
Nobody's looking for one. I mean, when you the second worst record in the league, you just shut all this up. We don't need to talk about nothing.
And they've also, also obviously traded Ben Mathurin, so they've made some changes to their team, brought in Zubac. So we'll see what the team starts to look like next year. The NBA is kind of in a good spot right now, at least with the teams vying to try to get into the playoffs. We've got the Charlotte Hornets on a miraculous run to kind of revive their season. The Clippers on a miraculous run to kind of revive their season. The Knicks have been playing well over the past few weeks. Obviously, the Celtics are where they're at. The Pistons are playing well. The Cavs have been playing well in the East as well. So it's starting to heat up and really get into the the nitty gritty of the season. With that being said, since we're kind of more than halfway through the season, maybe 75% through the season at this point, about 20 games left. Who do you guys have right now as front runners for the different major awards, starting with the MVP?
For me, I mean, I guess I say my top will be Shea, Cade, and Jokic. Obviously for Cade, I mean, they just came out of nowhere, to be honest with you. I don't think anybody penciled Detroit as a number 1 seed and playing as well as they played this year. So I think that if I had a vote, I'd go with that off the cusp, because I mean that just, and it's not even fatigue for me. It's like they're playing extremely well. They play hard every night. Cade is the leader of that team. I mean, I'll pencil in, but obviously, if you had to ask me, it'd probably end up going to either Shea or Jokic. Defensive player of the year, everybody's going to want Wemby. I honestly think it's a chance I don't even want to wish it. I'm not wishing upon him, but he's at that cusp of the 65 game thing. If he missed 3 more games, over. And so that will, in my opinion, that will boost up Chet Holmgren to become the defensive player of the year. That's just what I think might eventually happen. So that's my opinion. And then coach of the year, you got to give it to Joe Mazzulla, man. Just like you said, Kaz. I mean, come on. Everybody come in this season, they did not pencil Boston. I didn't pencil them to be no top 2 seed. I said probably 5 or 6 between that range. I didn't think they was going to be that high up. And for him to be able to play, and it's not just Jayson Tatum gone. You talking about Porzingis left, talking about Holiday's gone. And you talking about Al Horford going, just staples within the team to be able to, the continuity they have. Obviously, they still have people from that championship team, but that's your main core players. And they all gone. And then Jayson Tatum hurt. And for him to, continue to play, and even though Jaylen Brown only missed 6 games, I mean, they 5-1 without him. So, I mean, that's just a staple to Missoula, in my opinion. So that's who I would have to say this coach.
I like all 3 of those. It's hard to kind of argue with any of those. Like you were leaning towards, like you had a vote, you said you go Cade for MVP. I'm gonna go Cade for MVP. I think what that team is doing right now is, I don't want to say remarkable, but it's very impressive. I mean, like, you're tied in the loss column for the least losses in the NBA. Who had that? You know what I mean? And like, Cade is the guy on that team, and has been playing like the guy on that team. It's one of those things where you look around and Shea has missed a lot of time. Well, I don't want to say a lot of time, but he missed more than he usually has at this point in the season. Jokic missed a lot of time this season. Cade's been there. You know what I mean? Cade's been putting up the numbers. I would go Cade, but like you said, that top 3 is pretty much what it is. With Defensive Player of the Year, Wemby Smith, like you said, on that cusp, but I feel like he's also overdue one already, which is crazy to say in his 3rd year or whatever, but he is in a way. So it's kind of, hopefully, he does meet that kind of threshold, because you just see the impact. And his defense is more than blocking shots. Obviously, it's it's literally changing the way people approach the rim, which is what we've seen, like, with crazy shot blockers, throughout history. But it just looks different. It just looks different. It looks like everybody's just legit scared. That's the whole point of defense. When you can be in their head mentally, that's what they all do. The great defenders, mentally awake and scared. That's what he does on a nightly basis. I think it's his to lose as far as game time, or games missed. And then for coaches, I got to go JB. Big staff. Like, same kind of reasons with Cade Cunningham for MVP. Like, what expectations? So we know, Coach of the Year is, a lot of it is, expectations and going into the season and where you're at now. And I think this is the biggest jump that anybody had. No shade to Joe, because Joe has done a fantastic job without his star player, but got to go JB.
Yeah, and I'm gonna I guess be the third person to say I'm rocking with Cade in this one. Some of it has to do with the games played, obviously. And Shea basically missing almost a month, or if it probably was a month at that point. And Jokic was obviously out as well, and Jalen Duren is really, 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 really good, and probably a really underrated player in the league. But, like, outside of that, it's slim pickings over there for the Pistons. And in terms, I mean, Tobias Harris can score, and he's consistent for the most part. Consistently giving you that 18, 19 points.
19 points for sure.
Outside of that, it's really, they don't really have a guy that can just go necessarily get a bucket. So. What they're kind of doing, they're kind of smuggling you in terms of their defensive pressure, and the physicality and the intensity that they have. But the guy that's kind of leading that team is obviously Cade Cunningham. For the defensive player of the year, I'm actually going a little different. I do think that I think that Chet's probably the leader in the clubhouse, but I think Rudy Gobert has a really good chance to win it this year. I could see them not wanting to give it to him, obviously, because people love to bring up the fact that he gets played off the court in the playoffs or whatever the case may be. I don't know if that's necessarily his defense or more so his offense and lack thereof. And there's definitely a lack of respect for around the league and former players. Shaq especially is always saying stuff about him. But Rudy Gobert, I do think is having another excellent defensive year, as he usually does. And it sounds weird, but I mean, he is kind of like a lock. I mean, he really should be considered a lock Hall of Famer at this point. Especially if we're gonna say like a guy, no disrespect to Draymond, but a guy like Draymond is a lock Hall of Famer. Like and we say he's the best defensive player of his generation. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, but you have to have Rudy, right up there, and he's just having another great season. So I do think that they would probably lean Chet because I don't think that Wemby's, unfortunately, he's got like a game or two left, but. Chet's obviously I think the Thunder are the best defensive team in the league. Shea, like we mentioned, has been out, for a long period of time, and their defensive pressure has been the reason that they've been able to stay afloat and, basically be tied for the best record in the league right now. So I do think that they would probably lean Chet. And then for Coach of the Year, I think is a little tough because there are a lot of great candidates. I think both of the guys that you mentioned, as great as Jaylen Brown has been playing, a lot through the season, he has actually had a negative rating or negative net rating when he's on the court. So they're kind of doing it with, not only JB, but with the rest of the team and how great they've been defensively. So, absolutely Mazzulla, JB, obviously tied for the lead league in terms of the record and having the best record in the league, and it's kind of had a stranglehold on that, at least in the Eastern Conference side of things for the entirety of the year. But I think I'm gonna have to lean Charles Lee at this point because the Hornets are, they turned their season around, and honestly, both him and Tyronn Lue, because we did question Tyronn Lue at the beginning of the season pretty heavily. Yep. But he's completely changed their season around. That's making a tough decision in terms of cutting LaMelo's minutes back a little bit to kind of keep him healthy throughout the season has been a big factor. Obviously, keeping their team healthy just in general because Brandon Miller was out last year and has been out the beginning of the season. And they've completely turned their season around to where they are a play-in team. There have been some conversations about people talking about them being a contender. I don't necessarily know how you can consider them a contender as a 9 seed right now, but as much as we say we didn't necessarily expect that with the Pistons, I don't think anybody expected that with the Hornets, especially given how their season started this year. And then they made a really good pickup with getting Kobe White at the trade deadline as well. So I do see that, I don't know if they'll end up getting out of the play-in in terms of before we get into the play-in, but just the turnaround that they've had to at least start the 2026 has been something to behold. And they get them shots up. they get them shots up, and they get them up quick. And they're very very similar to how the Celtics get. The Celtics get the fucking shots up, and they're starting to find their defensive intensity as well. So especially with the lack of depth on the team, I think that they've been doing kind of a miraculous job there. So he might get my vote for Coach of the Year there. So. What do you guys think about Rookie of the Year? Because obviously, talking about the Hornets, they got Khan. Obviously, Cooper Flagg being the youngest player in the league, been playing really well. A lot of, not a guy that's been in the Rookie of the Year race, but Angel Reese's brother, I just saw had a really big game. I think like 19 and 20 in his third game in the NBA. So we've got a lot of good rookie plays this year. So who do you guys have for leader of the Rookie of the Year?
Like you said, it's a good bit that you could choose from, but I feel like Rookie Year becomes more of a popularity thing than the rest of the awards a little bit to me. So I think Cooper Flagg, he's in the league right now. I think he'll probably end up getting it, and I will throw this in there too. I think Naz Reid will get 6 man. So I didn't say that earlier.
Yeah, I want to go Khan. But I'm gonna go Cooper Flagg though.
Nah, I wouldn't even been mad if you said Khan.
Honestly, just like you said, Shot, like with the Hornets, for them to be above 500 at this point in the season. When the last time we seen that? Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, long time ago. You know what I mean? Like this is kind of is crazy to kind of look at. And I know they're like you said, Shot, they're a 9 seed. They got a lot of work to do still. But the way they're hot right now. The way this could shake out, they could surprise everybody. But I'm gonna go Cooper Flagg though. Of course, he did miss some time with injury, but he came back today. Actually, dropped 18. He's been solid the whole season. for the team that's going through a lot of turmoil a little bit over in Dallas. You know, you again, like we talked about defensive player of the year, Anthony Davis was one who I had circled, you know, before the season, and that didn't shake out. You know, there's a lot that didn't go well with that squad. Of course, we all know the Kyrie injury of it all too. So coming in as number one pick with all the pressure on you and still producing on a damn near night to night basis is still pretty remarkable, especially with all this happening in Dallas. So I got a cool flag.
I'm gonna rock with Khan. You know,
I respect it.
Sticking with the Hornets. You know, I think if Cooper didn't miss the games that he missed, I do think that it would probably be a runaway. You know, Khan's putting the pressure on them, and you know we'll see how the rest of the their class kind of shakes out, because I mean Derek Queen was playing really well at the beginning of the season, kind of tailed off a little bit now, but you know I think the rookies is this year, and then obviously we've heard a lot about the freshmen in college that are coming up in the next class as well. I do think that we're set up to see an influx of talent in the youth, especially considering our number one overall pick from last year has basically not been talked about at all, and is, you know, essentially been almost benched. Like, he's just kind of there. So I do think that it's good to kind of have a really good rookie class. You know, Sarr hasn't necessarily been talked about too much this year as well. You know, we talked about him a little bit when we were talking about the trade with Anthony Davis and Troy Young, who also made his Wizards debut today. But, you know, I'm excited for where the league's going in terms of the young talent that's coming into the league. And, you know, obviously we talked a lot about the, you know, face of the league and stuff like that, and, you know, Americans versus people from overseas and stuff like that. So starting to get some more American players that should be good, hopefully be good coming in. We'll see. You know, they gotta hold up their end of the bargain. But it's definitely an exciting time, especially as we start to see, you know, it could be LeBron's last year, maybe this year or next year. James Harden, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, all getting older. Russell Westbrook. So all of these guys are starting to really be phased out, and you know we're kind of seeing it where Steph's hurt right now. LeBron's been good, but he hasn't been LeBron all season. KD has been, you know, KD. You know, he's getting his buckets, but I have seen him get cooked a lot more times than he normally does, and he's got his own Twitter gate going on right now too. So you know, Russ is obviously dying in sack like most people do, but you also got DeMar DeRozan dying in sack like most people do. But this older generation of players are starting to phase out, so it's, you know, it's good to see Khan, Cooper, you know, maybe VJ Edgecombe. I still have no idea why the 76ers traded Jared McCain, but I mean, I guess we thought he could have possibly been something last year before he got hurt. So I don't know. It's a good time in the league. The league has been really good this season in terms of like parity, and yeah. I really think we're in for a good playoff this year, especially all the matchups that are set right now.
It started off kind of crazy with OKC. But once that shit kind of died down, it was like, all right. And when San Antonio started smacking them,
yeah,
it was like, all right, let's open this shit up a little bit, and especially in the East, like you said.
And then, I mean, like, thinking of, like, if we look, I'm not saying that the Thunder would lose, but I mean, I think, like, if I'm a betting man, I would probably, how the play-in is right now, I'd probably pick the Clippers to be to get in and be the 8th seed, especially, you know, it looks like they're I don't know, we don't know about Garland, but Ben Mather has been playing all right. Obviously, Kawhi's been hooping all season. They turned their season around as well. But like a Thunder Clippers matchup, 1-8 could be pretty interesting. I don't think the Clippers will win by any means, but like
it'll be more interesting than Golden State. I'll say that much. Believe that there.
Yeah, funny.
Well, like I said, I would pick them to be the 8th seed, and that was kind of with the idea that Golden State was going to be dropped out. So I do not think they'll make it. But I mean, if we get the Hornets in, a Pistons Hornets series would be really good, because it's like, you know, two completely different worlds: a team that's getting the shots up and a team that's trying to lock you up. So
then they just get the fight too.
And they got the fight and had a
Yeah.
suspension and everything, so that could be something that could be very interesting. The 7 seed with the Magic and the Heat, or the Hawks. I guess the Hawks are the Hawks are on a winning streak right now. I think they're on a 5-6 game winning streak right now, so maybe they make things a little interesting. I know a lot of people are hype about Jonathan Kuminga. We'll see how long that lasts.
Let's see how the honeymoon lasts.
The honeymoon period will last, but it's an exciting time in the NBA. With that being said, the NFL has been trying its hardest to steal headlines over the past few weeks, and there was a big trade announced today with the Buffalo Bills acquiring DJ Moore from the Chicago Bears. A lot of people have kind of been hinting that could be a move for the Bears. It could be a move towards getting Max Crosby. We'll kind of see how that goes over the next few weeks. But how did you guys feel about that trade when it was announced today?
Hey, all that tells me is they feel like they're a receiver away from winning it all. I mean, we all said in our group, second round pick for DJ Moore is pretty steep. I don't think anybody would have thought that that's what they would have went for, but I mean, he did go for that. Josh Allen, I mean, that's one of the knocks on not knocks on him, but that's one of the things that has been discussed like throughout the last 2-3 years. Once Stephon left, was like he needs a legit receiver, and I mean, in my opinion, I like DJ Moore. I think he is a legit receiver. He's better than what they have. Now, is he a bona fide like superstar number one? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I ain't gonna say he is, but he's for sure better than what they have. So I think that is an upgrade for them. They feel like second round pick is a good enough price for them. No more excuses. That's what I'm gonna say. No more. That's what they're telling us. That's what they're telling us, that this is a missing piece, a receiver. And no more excuses, bro. Nah.
I mean, no more excuses is where I kind of start with that. Like, you got it. You better hit on all your draft picks, and they better be mostly defense or offensive line next month, because like it's a bold move to go for DJ Moore. Like you said, Chris, is he a bona fide wide receiver one? People will debate about it. You know what I mean? But I feel like his skill set kind of, I don't know. I mean, it also depends on how they want to use him. It depends on how they want to use him. Yeah, he's not pigeonholed into one kind of style, more like a Khalil Shakir. But that type of quick game stuff has worked for DJ Moore in the past. And will he be more of a downfield threat at this point in his career? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to kind of see how it all shakes out. But like I said, you better hit on your defensive picks in this draft, Brandon Bean, because the bold move like this, and I'm not surprised that they traded for a receiver. I think I even told you, Shy, like weeks ago or whatever. Like, I had them as like the Michael Pittman team. I thought they would go for a player like that. DJ Moore's a swing. We already knew that Chicago wanted to get rid of him. We knew that at the end of the season. And for them to still get a second round pick flipped to Chicago's side is a great deal. This is a fantastic deal. Whether they use that, flip that for Max Crosby, or even stick and pick, this is a great, fantastic deal for Chicago. So that's kind of where I look at it from. Like, that's a great kind of get for Chicago, and we'll kind of see what Buffalo, if DJ Moore can, like you said, get them over the hump. Because, I mean, that offense has always been good, and it's still going to probably be, one of the tops in the league, scoring-wise and everything. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and I think this past year they had the least amount of receiving yards from receiver from the receiving group this year for all the teams in the league. So there was definitely something that needed to be added there. It'll be interesting to see what kind of happens, because there has been word that they might still continue to look to add at the position with a guy like Romeo Doubs, or maybe even Mike Evans, depending on what he's looking to command. But I definitely think they needed to make an addition to the receiver room. Now, a second round pick, I don't necessarily know about that. I do comparatively, in the season, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a lot of talk about how they didn't trade their first round pick for Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
So, and obviously there's been conversations about A.J. Brown and where he could possibly go, and him possibly getting traded, and a number one being the asking price maybe plus more. I would have. If AJ Brown gets traded, I am very interested to see what that compensation looks like. Um, but with him being only a year older than Jalen Waddle, I can. I just wouldn't have gone with a second round pick. Maybe a third round pick, pick third round pick, and maybe they send you like that fifth back. I think I would have been like, all right, that's cool. But like a second round pick, even though it's going to be bottom of the second round, they're expecting to continue to be good, so they're always going to be bottoms. I don't know. It's a little interesting, but I do like DJ Moore. I do like his obviously there's been he's had some of his best seasons with Joe Brady when he was in Carolina. So maybe he's thinking that he can replicate that. Joe Brady has been doing a lot of confident talks, like in terms of saying that, obviously saying that, Keon Coleman, it's the best thing for your career that I got hired, blah, blah, blah. Well, that remains to be seen. We'll see what they do with Keon. They talked about maybe using that Shakir is not only a short range guy, so they'll start to open it up for him a little bit more. That remains to be seen as well, considering he was the offensive coordinator. Now, obviously, the head coach might have had a way that he wanted to run things, and that completely makes sense. But we'll have to kind of see the evolution of their offense and their receiving room. But it's a good start, I guess. We'll kind of see. We'll see whatever else they add, and how they add it, and like you said, with their draft picks and stuff like that. So, it's interesting. It's interesting, especially for given that for a guy. I think everybody was shocked with the asking price, and obviously we don't necessarily know what the asking prices are until we find out about what the actual trade details are. But for Brandon Beane to have been so strong about we don't necessarily need to add to the receiving room, coming out with what's seemingly like in overpay after people had already questioned why you kept your job, and you're floating that there's more moves to be made. This isn't it. Blah blah blah. I don't know. It's a little interesting. It's a little interesting, but I do like DJ Moore, and I do like him going to Buffalo. I just don't necessarily like the compensation for it. So, on the flip side of that, on the opposite side of the field, we also had a major trade with Trent McDuffy being traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Los Angeles Rams. Now, we're saying that we had this trade. All these trades can't be made official to the new league the year starts. But we're assuming that nothing is going to happen where somebody reneges or maybe somebody's a little bit more injured than they say they were or anything like that. But how do you guys feel about that trade?
I mean, for me, good on the Rams part. They could have used another corner. I mean, that was probably their weak position last year, especially with how their defense was playing towards the end of the season. I mean, they have a good pass rush, but it was almost like their corners just wasn't holding up good enough. So, kind of seemed like their pass rush was a little bit hit or miss with the back end not performing as well. So that's good on them. I know we're gonna have a whole bunch of Rams to Super Bowl. Give them the same shit I just said about Bills. No more excuses. Not trying to hear none of them. Not trying to hear nothing else about them. You better go win it. You better go win it. That's for the niggas on the podcast. Cass, better go fucking win it. You better go fucking win it. But nah, that's a good trade for them though. For real. That is a good trade for them. For the Chiefs, I mean, it's on brand for them. It seems to be they're just going to go ahead and draft another corner. But I mean, they're in an interesting position as a team because we don't know what Patrick Mahomes is going to be or when he's going to come back from his injury, and that defense. I say that's the only thing that kind of quote unquote held them together. But again, we had the questions about their back end throughout the whole season. So they're gonna have to hit on their draft pick. So we'll see how that works for them. But I think this will be definitely a down year for Kansas City.
I wouldn't be shocked. It's one of those things where you could tell. That's been their MO, like you said, Chris. It's on par with what they've been doing, and a lot of it has been confidence in their ability to develop, their ability to find diamonds in the rough, so to speak, at the major positions, like in the back seven at least. And it's a bold move for a team that still consider themselves like contenders, in a way. So I mean, we'll kind of see how it shakes out and what they end up using the draft picks on. But like from the Rams side, I mean, I think a lot of people, not just me, a lot of people had them picking a corner, in this upcoming draft, and to go out and get one on McDuffie's level at your worst first round pick, it's a pretty solid. I mean, like I don't think it was an overpay by any means. I really respect Trent McDuffie's game. Of course, he's had the issues with the turnovers and not having enough of them for a while, and it's slowly ticking up. We'll see how it all kind of comes together in LA. But again, man, like no excuses, Chris. But I like this. I like the squad, man. I like this squad. This is a great
I can't lie.
kind of trade.
I think
it's a great kind of trade to make when you also have the 13 overall pick coming up too. And then they also, there's been some rumors that they're also in on the Max Crosby trade. So we'll see if they hang on. Might be. So we'll see if they hang on to that first round pick at 13 or trade it away. They ain't scared to trade it away.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how the rest of the couple of weeks shape. But like this is a good start for the Rams, I think, in the offseason.
Yeah, and I do think that they still need to, figure it. Devontae Adams is still getting up there in age, so I do think they'll need to add another receiver, and they obviously struggle to find consistency with that wide receiver 3 position. But outside of that, they don't necessarily have like too many flaws, on their team, and I think his McDuffie's versatility to play both inside and outside is going to be really big for them. And we also. Obviously, that wasn't the only cornerback that's been traded this year. So we saw, in comparison with Sauce Gardner, who had already signed his contract. He went for a little bit more. So them getting him, obviously, we'll have to see what the contract looks like as well, to kind of fully, how we feel about the trade. But cornerback, especially nickelback, as we've seen over the past few years, has been a really important position. And it seems like I think I was saying this the other week, but like every year there's a new position that people say is a critical position. It's the most important position, as opposed to just acknowledging that everybody needs, all positions are important on the football field. All the positions are critical. But, nickelback has definitely been more prominent, especially for our obviously two of the biggest plays over the last 2 Super Bowls have been from nickel corners. Devin Witherspoon probably should have been, or not probably should have, but really could have been the Super Bowl MVP last year. And then obviously with the Eagles, the game flipped on the pick 6 by Cooper DeJean. And then, with Kansas City in the past, they obviously had Trent McDuffie as well as Snead that had the inside out versatility. So it continues to be a position that's very important in the league. So them securing that, and then they still might, if they don't trade for Max Crosby, still might go get another outside corner.
Yeah.
To go with Emmanuel or Forbes and him. So I like it for the Rams, but on the Kansas City side of things, this is kind of, this is what happens when you don't necessarily hit on your draft picks, honestly. Everybody keeps comparing it to the Tyreek Hill trade, and things get glossed over when you win, and obviously they did win 2 Super Bowls after trading Tyreek Hill. So, but everything, that bill was eventually due, and we saw that bill kind of come due this past season, where they didn't, even though they were better statistically than previous seasons, they couldn't put it all together because the talent level on the team wasn't that great, and the talent level of, their high-end players was also dropping, maybe outside of Patrick Mahomes. So they've got a lot of work to do. They definitely need to reevaluate, especially, they haven't necessarily hit on, Xavier Worthy is not necessarily a hit. They drafted, Felix Azuma, ain't been talked about at all. Obviously, George Karlaftis got an extension on his contract, but some people have a lot of questions about that as well. So it's not like they've just been like, killing it on the draft front. So they need to get back to that, and having a top 10 pick and then a pick at the end of the first round definitely helps. And maybe they do end up trading up. I know there's been a lot of rumors about them going after Jeremiah Love. I don't necessarily think that's the best idea if so, but you never know. I mean, hey, if they start signing some of these receivers, or maybe even they trade for George Pickens, maybe that'll be something they need. They like some of those. I don't want to say George Pickens because people go a little overboard with it, but they like people with some, that make some questionable decisions sometimes, and
I
it
think
does
that's a
seem
good fit, though. I think it's a good
it does
fit.
seem like Rashee Rice. I don't know if he's going to be there for long. He's not, not making some of the wisest decisions over the past few years. Like I said, Xavier Worthy hasn't necessarily hit. Travis Kelce has been, not Travis Kelce. Hollywood Brown is seemingly begging the Ravens to be back with them, so I don't think that he'll be back. Tyquan Thornton was a plus for them last year, but it seems like he might have fallen out of favor once they got the rest of the three back, and he was a free agent as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Kansas City does. I think, picks always sound great until you're starting to lose top players, and eventually, you're trying to search for all pros when you already have an all pro. I do think that it doesn't always end up working out that way. So.
And like you said, Kay, I think the biggest thing is with the L'Jarius Sneed, they had Trent at the time, and they saw the trending of him being a good player, so they felt like they could release him. I mean, who's on their roster that you feel like you should just get rid of an all-pro corner? I mean,
Jalen Watson's a free agent too. So.
Yeah, Watson's a free agent, and like you said, Shai, why should we have any confidence that they're going to hit on this? I think it's 29, right? Why should we have any confidence? They haven't showed us they can hit on the bottom 5 picks in the first round for the past few years. So why do we have any faith that 29 will? I don't know. We'll see though. But again, it's a first. It's also a third. You got to hit on them though. You got to, which hasn't been there. The MO.
And we'll see with their first round pick, but from last year and Josh Simmons, he had a little, obviously not obviously, but some family stuff going on last year. They did release Jawan Taylor, or expected to release Jawan Taylor before free agency. It sounds like they might be in for Rasheed Walker. So, they did sign Jalen Moore last year. So maybe there's something more to what's going on with Josh Simmons or what they're trying to do on that offensive line. I don't know. I don't know. They've got to, they really need to hit on, starting to get some, replenish that defensive line. And I think, kind of like we spoke about in our chat, I think that might be a little bit more of their focus than the corners, just because of how their defense plays. But I don't know. It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. But getting into another trade that happened over the past few weeks, we got David Montgomery. Few hours after saying that it was capped that he wanted out, got traded to the Houston Texans. How did you guys feel about that trade in Houston acquiring another running back?
I mean, for Houston, I feel like that was a missing piece of their team last year as far as a good running game. I mean, Nick Chubb coming off an injury. You got Woody Marks, who's a young guy, and obviously we don't know what hell happened with Joe Mixon. So I mean, David Montgomery, I mean, if all things are equal, is probably the best running back they have, and I mean I'm hoping that he gets the better opportunity to become the workhorse, the actual full-fledged running back. Because I mean, with him and Gibbs, that was a good 1-2 punch. But I mean, obviously Gibbs eventually became more of the feature back than he was. So I mean, I understand why he would want out at that point, and I still think he got some tread on that tire, and I think that'll help that offense out tremendously to have a good running game. Obviously, the offensive line need to play better too. under center needs to play better too. But I think it's a good situation for David Montgomery, and again for Detroit. I mean, that allows Gibbs. Maybe he could turn into an MVP season this year. Full fledged. He got the whole arsenal, and it's all him now. So we'll see. I'd like it for both sides though.
Yeah, I like it from Detroit's side. I just don't. Have you heard anything about any contract extension or anything? I don't think so, right? So you traded that away for a 1 year rental in a way, if nothing happens. But even if you give him a contract extension, most of the time, I mean, when we talk about running backs, it will still be like this year fully guaranteed, and the next year we'll have some partial or no guarantees. You traded a fourth and a seventh for that. I don't know. I feel like you could have used that 4th round pick. I feel like you could have just drafted a running back and a player on top of that, and an old lineman on top of that. That you just giving away for free. Now, no, just like all seriousness, I don't like the trade too much from Houston's side. It's in a long kind of list of questionable decisions they've been making over the past couple of years since CJ Stroud's rookie year, since after CJ Stroud's rookie year. I don't know. I wouldn't have gave that up for David Montgomery. Like hell of a player. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like you could have used that 4th for something totally. I won't say better, but totally different in a way that's not a possible 1 year rental. The way it shakes out,
and it's David Montgomery is a little bit getting up there in age. He's not old, but he is getting up there in age, and it has seemed like they have been kind of like the team that's always going for the running back that people think is might be cut. Obviously, with Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb over the past couple years, their offense, Joe Mixon did play pretty well his first year there. Especially the first few weeks before he started to kind of slow down, and just the offense as a whole has kind of always been a mess there. Holistically throughout the entirety of the season, they've had hot streaks and stuff like that. But I do think that he can obviously bring some stability to the running back game. They weren't necessarily great, especially as a pass blocking. Wasn't necessarily a great runners either. Just with Nick Chubb coming off of injury, getting up there in age. And then having a rookie and Woody Marks that, it was okay. Wasn't, no shade on him, but, he's a rookie. So we'll see if he kind of takes the next step this year and maybe he becomes a 1-2 punch. But I do feel like they're probably not done adding to that room, maybe and probably through the draft. But I mean, I like David Montgomery, so I do think that it's a decent trade on both fronts. And the Lions maybe gearing up as well. Once again, could possibly be a Max Crosby potential destination. So getting more picks and kind of continue to rebuild their team, missing the playoffs this year, having some of the injuries that they've had over the past couple years, it's probably necessary to kind of replenish the talent in the building. Even though obviously I don't think they're lacking talent at all. But it's kind of like it's cool. Aside from the Texans, you would think that the Texans would kind of go for more of the maybe drafting a younger guy, like you said, to kind of build with the offense, especially as they're starting to get into the contract extension talks because if you, like you mentioned, if they do sign him to a contract extension, what does that look like? How much are you looking to pay him? Because obviously they just paid Danielle Hunter an extension right before we hopped on. They've told anybody who would listen that Will Anderson is going to be an extension candidate this year. They told anybody who would listen that CJ Stroud wasn't necessarily going to be an extension candidate this year. But, I don't think anybody thinks that he's, some people have tried to float that he's going to be traded. I don't think that anytime soon. It's definitely not happened this year, so we can kind of put that to bed. But I don't think that CJ is also just going to, be as bad as he was in the playoff game. So I imagine that he's going to get a contract extension at some point. So when that money starts to come in, you got two edge rushers signed, a cornerback, a receiver, your quarterback. having that running back position, get with a younger guy. And I mean, it's not necessarily a strong running back class either, or so it's perceived. But yeah, it's cool.
It's cool. It's cool.
So getting out of the trades of everything, obviously we also had the franchise tag deadline pass, and had a few guys be franchise tagged. Daniel Jones being one of them with the transition tag. George Pickens being one. Breece Hall being one as well. Were you guys surprised by anybody not being tagged? Maybe like the Kenneth Walkers of the world, or was everything probably pretty much what we expected? Maybe outside of Daniel.
Yeah, probably outside of Daniel Jones, but I mean, honestly, a lot of people don't use the tags like that because I mean, I guess I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of just hearing players who get tagged in general, they just it's not a good thing to be tagged. And most players obviously would rather the guaranteed contract than to be tagged, and you're tagging me, and I think they just should do away with the tag because you're forced to now I got to stay here just because you don't want to pay me the money that I deserve. I mean, I wouldn't expect anybody else to be tagged. I mean, it's interesting that the Cowboys chose to tag George Pickens, but I don't know how that's going to work out for them. So we'll see. Hey, when people get tagged, it's always drama right after somebody get tagged. Nobody really wants to sign the shit. So we'll see.
That's the thing. Like that shit counts against your cap, that amount, but you can't fine them for missing and not reporting to, whatever happens, in the summer or close to the summer. So in a case like George Pickens, he don't have to sign that shit, and he's not going to get fined for it because he didn't sign anything. You know what I mean? I don't know if he takes it to that level. Of course, we've seen that him and CD have built a good relationship, good friendship so far. So maybe that has something to do with him just wanting to stick it out. Maybe they come to an extension agreement. I expect Kyle Pitts I expect them to come with some kind of extension with him too. I don't expect him to not sign it and kind of sit out. But like you said, Chris, it's not a pretty thing, this franchise tag. I didn't really expect on anybody else. I knew I won't say I knew, but I had a feeling Kenneth Walker would not get tagged because
he's a running back.
Well, not just even because of your running back, but if you really pay attention to the whole season, I don't think he's. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it was more of a 1-2 punch than people kind of look back and say it was. So with him and Charbonnet, I know Charbonnet is injured now, and we don't know when he's coming back. But it really was a true 1-2 punch between them. It wasn't like Kenneth Walker just dominating that backfield all season. I mean, that's not, and how valuable is that if you're Seattle looking forward? We'll see. So no, I really wasn't expecting anybody else to get tagged. I mean, the Colts situation, Alec Pierce's name was being floated out to be tagged. And when the Daniel Jones stuff happened, it's like, okay, well, he can't now. And Alec Pierce is testing free agency. But again, that tag is $28 million. Is that what you want to pay Alec Pierce? I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't, but I mean, what it is. So I didn't really expect anybody else to get tagged, but yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have went ahead and just secured Alec because I do think that, Colts land is definitely freaking out right now, but I don't think that it's necessarily that big of a deal because I think we always hear this stuff during free agency, and I do think that Alec Pierce will have a lot of suitors, but Buffalo just traded for a receiver, kind of took him out, which is one of the destinations. Obviously, Stephon Diggs got released, but it sounds like the Patriots are in serious talks with A.J. Brown or with the Eagles for A.J. Brown. And that's always kind of been a linked destination for the past 2 years, basically. So that kind of removes him from there. I guess if you're, I do think that it was curious for the Colts to even let it get to this point, just because, when you traded for Sauce Gardner, you traded A.D. Mitchell, who was potentially going to be the Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman replacement. So that pretty much should have been the moment that you signed Alec Pierce, but we'll see what happens. I'm not too sure that he actually hits free agency. I think it's all kind of a song, but the Daniel Jones thing, To be honest, a lot of people are kind of getting on the Colts for doing it. I think that it's very smart for them to do the transition tag because it seems like Daniel Jones is, his representation is definitely trying to, which to their credit, the Colts have kind of been like, oh, Daniel Jones is our guy. Daniel Jones is our guy, even through the Achilles tear, which I don't necessarily know if that was the wisest thing to just put out there. So I think kind of calling his bluff and being like, dude, your only suitor's probably going to be like Minnesota. Be realistically, like what do you think we're not paying you $40 million or whatever, whatever the expectation is. Yeah. I think it's fine. There has been a little bit of hints with George Pickens and both George Pickens and Kyle Pitts that they could possibly be a tag and trade candidate guys. I think it could potentially be smart for the Falcons just because have no receivers essentially, obviously trading their first round pick, trying to see. I don't know what Kyle Pitts necessarily goes for. Like, he's not going for a first round pick in my opinion.
Maybe I think it's definitely a day. I think they get day 2 for Kyle.
Maybe they get a third round pick. Like, I don't know. Should we just see DJ Moore go for a second round pick? I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know what Kyle Pitts would truly go for. And then George Pickens. I think George Pickens. I think it would be smart for the Cowboys to do it, but once again, both of them, for George Pickens and Kyle Pitts. Actually, I probably would take the second round pick away because if you're trading for them, you're also signing them to a contract, so that kind of devalues the compensation to get back as well. So George Pickens, I would love to see a team like if the Cowboys, because they've been rumored for their Max Crosby, a first and George Pickens and maybe something else for Max Crosby. Now you have an additional first. You have a true number one receiver for Fernando Mendoza. We're not going to sit here and play for Fernando Mendoza when he comes in. And so I think that could potentially be, I would love that, honestly, for George Pickens himself. And obviously with that gives them 3, guys as weapons with Genty, Brock Bowers, and Pickens. And then the young guys that they drafted last year, they could kind of, figure it out and not have to be, and then maybe you still get an Omar Cooper who Mendoza, was playing with in Indiana. So I don't know. Nothing was necessarily surprising. The franchise tag is always curious to me because it's like, why play the games? If you're saying that,
thank you.
I don't understand why it has to get to this point. For the most part, obviously the money for the league goes up every year, so that might be an aspect that you don't necessarily know. But for everybody, your value is. It's kind of, there's plenty of examples for what value that you're probably going to be at. Like Daniel Jones, for example, is probably not going to get paid more than Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, or it's going to be like an incremental addition. George Pickens is not getting Jamar Chase money, so there's probably a smooth, there's probably a clear baseline for that. Same thing with Kyle Pitts. He's not getting paid top of the line, George Kittle. So there's probably a baseline for that. Breece Hall, he's not getting paid top of the line. He's not going to be the highest paid running back. So there's probably, he might not even want to be in New York. But so that is a little different. So, but for the rest of these guys, just all right, why do you guys have to drag into these deadlines? It would benefit you so much more and I understand in the league, so many things are fluid and stuff like that. Agents want to play the games and stuff like that. They have to do what they have to do to try to maximize the amount of money that their clients can make. It just seems like it's just a little like Chris said, it's just time to remove the tag and you GMs, you owners, you GMs, you head coaches actually have to do your job and get this stuff done and get it done quickly, because we've seen so many times, and obviously everybody's the money is different, the cap is different for everybody, but we've seen the benefits of paying players early, getting them their contracts early, and how that benefits teams. So it's a lot of things that you're just like, bro, why does it happen? Why?
And it's like fucked up because it hasn't been done recently, but like they could literally like draft a first round rookie, get their 5th-year option, then tag them 2 times, so they in the league 7 years without having a contract. That shit is insane. Just because you ain't, like you said, Shot, do your damn job. You don't want to lose a player, do your damn job, get to the negotiation, and stop playing around.
And players also have to be, cooperative players and player agents.
That's true.
I will put 90% of it on them, on the front offices. Like, players have their part as well. I don't know. I'm not saying George Pickens. I'm just using him as an example, just because he's a receiver. Your value is not Jamar Chase money. Like, so if you're asking for that, like, not to say that you can't potentially be that, but thus far, if you're in your career, regardless of your circumstances, you haven't been that. You haven't been Justin Jefferson. You haven't been Jamar Chase. So, like, where you probably haven't been CeeDee Lamb. So, am I supposed to pay you more than CeeDee Lamb? Like, come on, like, let's cooperate here. So, seems like it should be easier than it's played out to be. Obviously, it is an entertainment league, so there is some aspects of like they're just trying to, milk it. But I don't know. It just
a lot of that also has to do with both of them, their ages. Like with both Kyle Pitts and George Pickens in particular, with both of them being 25, reaching this level, looking for their first extension. That's younger than we usually see. Obviously. So that plays a big part into what these agents are asking for too, which makes it even more difficult. But yeah, I agree with both of you said.
But even then, I would find that beneficial. I'm gonna sign a 3-year. I'm gonna get a 3rd contract and re-up again. Like, I don't know, but it's not.
If you sign a 3-year, you gotta be top money though, kind of, and that's probably what they're thinking. Like, I'll sign for 3 years, but you gotta pay me. I'll sign for two and a possible. We talking, but you got to pay me like that.
I don't know. It is very interesting, but outside of that, this is something that we were kind of expecting, but Kyler Murray has officially been told that he will no longer his services will no longer be needed in Arizona. Something that we kind of predicted would happen, way back when during the season when he was kind of benched and put on IR. That was pretty much the end of his time, or was the end of his time in Arizona. With that news, where do you guys think, or where would you guys like for him to land?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know how likely this is, but I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him in Minnesota. I just think it's weird for people to say that they would be trading. They would possibly try to trade JJ McCarthy. I mean, with all the grandstanding they was doing about getting him, and he's our quarterback of the future, blah blah blah. But that would be an interesting choice for me. I mean, I think, especially with him being in the league, he know how to play football. He's obviously mobile quarterback, and I think Justin Jefferson would do well to have him over there. But other than that place, I mean, I don't know. I think that's where I would lean towards if somebody actually needs him. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I would lean towards.
That's where the bet money is with Minnesota. I don't think there's no way in hell you trade JJ. You gotta think about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the only thing I'm kind of trying to understand. Like, how do you think that'll work out trading?
Yeah, there's no way they do it. He's still only 23 years old. Whatever you sign Kyler to is going to be a 1-year deal. So you don't trade away a possible future quarterback at any moment. I think Minnesota is the likely destination. There are some others, in the fold that people have been talking about. Atlanta, that's a possible one. Some people have floated out Miami. It kind of depends on where they're at with Tua, and that's probably the next domino to fall. Although I have seen some people say that they might carry Tua up until June 1st or whatever. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But honestly, like Kyler is. We all know we've been on this pod talking about Arizona and Kyler for the past 3 years now, and how we understand the talent is there. The injuries have been tough for him. And there is some explosiveness that is kind of lacking, whether that's a lot of confidence. I don't know what it is. But he still has a lot to prove. And I think he still has some good football to play. Not my personal style, my favorite style to watch, but I respect the talent. It just looks, he's really small. So that's just real. It just looks funny to me personally. I mean, that's not the best analysis, but that's just how I view it. But I understand the talent is there. He has a lot to prove. So I'm excited to see where he ends up going. Of course, he is the top quarterback out. This is a great year to be Kyler Murray. If you're looking at it now, and to get an opportunity to kind of show what you can do. You have your pick of the litter. At this point, it really seems like you have your pick of where you want to go, especially with how much you will be getting paid and won't be getting paid. So I'm excited to see how it shakes out. But I would say Minnesota would probably be likely right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it shakes out. I actually think his landing spot is probably going to be with the Jets, because I really don't know what else they're going to do.
What are they going to? Yeah.
But with that being said, the Jets I do feel like have been pretty smart in how they've acquired talent and players. Obviously with the multiple trades that they did last year, and getting a couple players with that as well. So. I would like to see. I don't know if I would like to see him to go to New York, just because it just seems like nothing works out really well in New York. And I will say, even though I've had questions about Kyler, I do think that it is. We talk so often about situation, and it is pretty clear that everybody in the league views the Cardinals as probably the worst ownership group in the league. So I do think, and that's saying something considering how people feel about like the Jets or
Carolina,
Carolina, and stuff like that. Which I mean, I feel like Carolina's the stuff's kind of died down there after those first few seasons with Tepper. It seems like he's kind of gotten out of the line right there, but I do think that is, and then obviously with Cliff Kingsbury kind of being his coach. And, people have talked about how, the Cliff Kingsbury offenses, and, he had this major resurgence last year and already has got like a job. So, maybe it's, maybe Kyler can, kind of I don't want to say like reinvigorate his career, but I mean, I guess that's kind of where it is. Like he's not necessarily Sam Darnold ilk, maybe more Baker ilk, but, I do think that that's my only hesitation about going to all the teams really like that could possibly be his that are in the market all seem like they have questions up top, with the front offices, and maybe not necessarily ownership, but definitely with the front offices. But Minnesota, I do, and selfishly, I would like to see Kyler come to Indy. Just saying.
That's fair.
Maybe they do. Maybe there's a situation where Minnesota signs Daniel Jones to they sign him to an offer, and they're willing to pay him. He's already been in the building. He's already worked with JJ McCarthy. It gives JJ McCarthy an opportunity to kind of prove himself, while Daniel maybe signs like a 1 or 2 year contract. He gets he gets healthy for the first couple of weeks. If JJ McCarthy's ass, we bring in Daniel and just kind of let him rock out. If he's not, then maybe you trade Daniel. I do think that could be something that's potentially interesting, but
it's on the table.
I don't know. I kind of don't feel like Minnesota, like there's something about Minnesota that I feel like Kyler wouldn't, it doesn't seem right. But you never know. I mean, that seems like the kind of the front runner right now, like you guys mentioned, but I do think that he does have some things to prove, especially, speaking about the thing that everybody goes to talk about is his work ethic and stuff like that. He's said in the past, like, I'm a professional. I'm a professional in 2 sports. Like, do you guys think that that's just something that if you don't have good work ethic, like that just happens? Like, which is fair. It's very fair. Arguably the greatest player in the history of high school sports in Texas. At his size, like a Heisman Trophy winner, I do think I think a lot of people, and this kind of goes back to the ownership group thing. I think a lot of people kind of criticize Kyler for that, as opposed to really criticizing why the organization put that out there about their
Why did they do that?
starting quarterback.
Study clause.
You
Shit.
know, the clause, obviously they felt that it was wrong because they removed it. But then, you know, they never, like, it never had to get, even if they wanted to keep that in, it never had to get out into the media, and it did. And somebody, like, purposely did that. And that, I feel like nobody has really tried to get to the bottom of that. And, you know, I think people kind of, I think any quarterback in the league, whether they did have questions about it or not, like, signing a contract and then your team putting that out about you basically to sabotage your reputation seems like very, and then with how his career ended with them, with Arizona, also seems kind of like, I feel like nobody's really, like, people aren't really giving, I feel like he deserves a little bit more grace. Maybe all that stuff is real, but I do think that he deserves a little bit more grace to be like, let's kind of get to the bottom of why exactly that happened. So I don't know. I'm interested to see. Hopefully that probably will be maybe the first domino to fall, or maybe not. Honestly, for free agency, because if he signs a minimum contract, maybe he just kind of like waits and sees where everybody starts to sign and how things start to shake out, and then kind of decides on his future there. So
depends on how bad people are pushing for it, though. If they pushing out there, he'll sign. He'll sign by Wednesday.
Yeah, maybe we shall see. But I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of signings pretty early on Monday. Mm-hmm. Monday, what is it? Monday at 12:00 or whatever.
Hey, 12:01.
12:01. You're gonna see about 5 of them. Like, damn, that's a quick negotiation.
It's already been some things talk about, like, oh, XYZ's reached out to Alec Pierce's representatives. What do you mean? So I saw something talk about, I can't remember what team it was, has talked to Brandon Aubrey's representatives. Like, what do you mean? These are so like, you might as well just open it up for agency the moment the Super Bowl ends. Honestly, like, I mean, good, or let the legal tampering period just happen from the start, because like these teams have all year to figure it out with their players. Like, you know, they're coming up. Like, you know, this is coming up. So, like, you know, I'm not going to continue to give you, I mean, even though it's only like a couple weeks, I'm going to continue to give you time. Like, just fucking, like, you already messed it up. Like, you figure it out. So,
especially when you know all this shit is happening at the combine the week before. All these talks are happening at the combine. Let's just get this shit. Like, we know this is when these deals are already agreed to right now, as we speak, to a lot of these guys. So, like, come on, man.
And that kind of goes back to my point about the franchise tag and signing to the extensions. Part of the reason that these deals are already agreed to is because there's already a baseline. They already have an understanding of, like, hey, you're going to fall within this realm of, like, money. So, like, should make it pretty easy. But that's neither here nor there. While we're on the topic of the combine, I don't necessarily want to get into you know, any combine winners or anything like that. But one of the things I felt that was a kind of a theme this year was a lot of as it's been a theme over the past few years, is that people did not do the full workouts. Some of them maybe did, like, maybe the 40, didn't do anything else. There was a lot of people that didn't do the 3-cone, stuff like that. You know, maybe they just did the field drills. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm all for player advocacy, but man, I wouldn't be. You can't be mad if an owner decide to dock that shit from you. You know what I'm saying? You can't be mad if they decide to dock that from, like, just your overall grade of how they feel about you. Because, I mean, you can pick and choose. That's just like somebody, in my opinion, that's like somebody decided, I'm gonna opt out of combine altogether, just throwing with receivers. I know I'm gonna be in my comfort zone. This is what I'm gonna do. And I feel like if you just opting out on certain ones just because you know you're a fast guy, so I'm gonna just be 40. That's it. I ain't got a bench or nothing like that. I mean, if you opt into the combine, you need to do all the drills. Sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, if you only get benched, you know, 25, 10 times, but you're a receiver. They should just understand, like, all right, I'm just not the strongest receiver out there, but I could do everything else, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, at that point, you got to be able to do all the drills, man. You just can't go in there and do one drill and be done. That's just not, in my opinion, that ain't right. But what do I?
What do we know? They don't do agility drills at all. Pretty much, you probably see 5 players per position doing the cone drills and stuff like that nowadays. Is kind of pathetic. I don't know, man. I get these people are getting this advice from their agents, so I can't kill these kids too much because this is what they're being told to do. They run the 40, they hop on the phone with their agent, and they say, all right, should I compete in the rest of this? Should I do the rest of this shit? What is it looking like? And if they say no, they done, or vice versa. So I don't know. It's a tough thing, but I did see like people were getting mad because like these people are accepting these invites, they're taking up these spots, quote unquote, taking up these spots for other student athletes that are trying to, or former athletes or former college athletes that are trying to get their name out there to these people. Now I understand that you have the pro days and all this other stuff too, where you can put your name out there, but this is a grander stage. We don't have access to pro days. Like I know all the scouts do, but a lot of what the NFL is, like Shad said before, is entertainment. And fan push is a thing. Fan push is a thing. So I don't know, man. It's taking up spots from other players. I get like all the scouts have been putting in the groundwork, and obviously we don't have all the coaches and stuff going to the combines anyway, and that's been a whole thing too. I will say like Avion Terrell, right? That's a guy I wanted to see run the 40. You can't be. This is the thing too. You can't be sitting up there on the podium the day before talking all that shit and saying that you expect to run this 40 time, and then the day of you don't compete, you don't do anything. Avion Terrell did that. Oh, I'm gonna shatter AJ's all AJ's time, AJ Terrell's time, and then you don't even run at the combine. How you gonna do that? All you did was some field drills. Come on, man. Like I don't like that part. I don't like that part where you get up there and I mean they've been doing this shit. This shit pissed me off with Michael Penix Jr. when he was at the combine a couple of years ago. He literally on they do a media set the couple of days before. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna run this. And then the day you don't run. What the fuck is that about? Why should we listen to anything that y'all saying now? You know what I mean? So that's the tough part for me is that you like don't sit there and act like you're gonna do all this stuff and then don't. That's so tough. But again, who am I?
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was leaning to as well. With if you're not going to compete, you don't need to be at the combine. Like there's other people that are maybe the diamonds in the rough that maybe not have gotten that invite, and they would love to go and compete, love to go and show off what they can do. It's a point in time where funny enough, one of the things that's kind of prominent right now in these the new media world is Rashad McCants and Deron Williams basically kind of going at it about Rashad McCants possibly quitting in his pre-draft workouts against Julius Hodge. And it's the reason that I bring that up is because this is an opportunity for you to show yourself against, and obviously you're not playing football, but it's an opportunity for you to go out there and compete and show how you match up with the rest of your peers and show why you should be drafted or why how you look like. They replay all the top guys pre going in as a advertisement for the combine. They replay all the top guys and how they looked, and you can kind of see like some of the guys looked a little different. Like they looked different, they moved different, they were fluid in how they did it, they competed, they ran fast, whatever the case may be. They looked good in their in their combine or the field drills and stuff like that. One of my favorite things to watch is like the gauntlet and with the receivers and seeing how smooth they go through it and stuff like that. So, I think that like, I watched it because I was, kind of working and, just watching and listening in the background. And, I feel like every GM or head coach that went and spoke, with the NFL Network crew, they kind of made it a point like, we're talking about all these record breaking, this is the fastest 40 times for every position group. And they're like, this is why are you guys scared to compete? I feel like every GM made it a point to say something about it. Like, I don't know why these guys aren't out here to compete. So maybe we'll see a shift in that next year. I do think that we should see a shift in that next year, but like that's got to be the question. That would be the first question I would ask, at the podium, when we're publicly. Why are you guys scared? Or if you're telling me that like you mentioned, if for Avion Terrell, all right, you telling me that you're going to run. What happens tomorrow if you don't run? Do we reserve the right to criticize you for it? Like, do we reserve? Because I know I'm sure a lot of players feel like if they're like, oh, my agent told me to do it, blah 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 blah. But they like if people start criticizing for them, they're going to be like, oh, I don't want to be criticized about that because like I'm running at my pro day or whatever the case may be. But like, fuck your pro day. So what are we talking about? Like this is the NFL Combine. This is where you get to compete. And the pro day is cool. I get it. Everybody's using that same excuse. This is my last time I get to throw or do stuff with my teammates. Y'all are probably practicing all off season together. Let's be for real. Y'all probably training all off season together. Like, be for real. So, I that would be my question. That would be my question when they're doing their interviews with their teams. Like, why didn't you go out there and compete? Like that, not to say that it does show. It's not like a major indictment against the players, but I do feel like it's just like, all right, like.
I mean, in my opinion, it should be because it's not like you're doing like the Senior Bowl or something. You're like actually putting on pads, you hitting. Yes, you could obviously if you're running fast, you could obviously pull a muscle or some shit like that. But for the most part, you don't. That's rare. And I'm like, especially quarterback, especially the quarterback position, like. You need to be doing these damn drills. You're not about to get injured. You're not getting hurt out here. So what's the problem? You could get up there, stand up there, do all the interviews, all the other stuff, but then just opt out and just like, oh, I'm too good for it. And obviously, I'm not trying to down on him, but I mean that could have adversely affected Shedeur Sanders for him not participating. You know what I'm saying? Had he participated, other people might have looked at him differently or whatnot. I'm not saying that it had a direct effect, but that's just something else. It's like you didn't participate and you end up getting drafted 5th round.
And that's the tough part because you see on the flip side of that, you see players like Bryce Young who don't participate, get drafted 1st overall. Fernando Mendoza was sitting there smiling the whole time, man. I ain't trying to see you smiling. Go throw the ball. And you a quarterback, go throw the ball, man. You sitting there cheesing. You cheesing the whole time. Like, bro, like go throw the ball. You just throwing the ball. I'm not telling you to run the 40, but you could throw it. Now, come on.
And somebody was like, typically like fast guys, we're only talking about the 40 and some of the fast guys like to show that they're fast. Like, they're not trying to, so what you scared for? Like, if you're scared, like you slow, like, with Fernando Mendoza, the guys like Fernando Mendoza and Bryce Young, I kind of understand because they are the presumptive number one. Bryce was the Heisman. They're both Heisman Trophy winners. Mm-hmm. Both very clearly the best players in college football at that point in time. So I kind of understand that. Shedeur, it was definitely a misstep and definitely probably affected. Everybody talks about the interviews and stuff like that. So on top of, I don't know if the interview things are true, but on top of that, those rumors, and then you're not going out there and kind of showcasing what you can do. But people talked about C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen, those guys when he competed. Those were memorable times. One of the things everybody thought C.J. Stroud was possibly going to be the number 1 overall draft pick after because of how clean the operation looked, how smooth his throwing motion is. Everybody fell in love with him. Josh Allen, like his arm strength, his arm ability. I mean, even to the point, Anthony Richardson. He was probably going to be drafted regardless if he went out there and did in the top 4 regardless. He was definitely drafted. But the fact of the matter is when he went and put on a show in the city that he was potentially going to be drafted by, it definitely was like okay, like we might got something with this kid. So, like, even if he was a little inaccurate, like, nobody's expecting you to be perfect. But, showcasing your talent, showcasing who you are, showcasing your personality, how you compete, how you want to compete, I think is a major, it's something major. And, like I said, I don't necessarily want to say it's a major indictment on the kids because they're probably, like we all agreeing, listening to their representation and, like, but, your representation also, it's they're paid to boost your head, like, at the end of the day. So I don't know, especially now with the NIL. Like, it's maybe you lose a little bit of money, but you should have some money coming in, right? You got the NIL, for however long you sign that contract, and I'm pretty sure. I don't know the all the specifics, but I'm like 99% sure the NIL doesn't just stop for them when they graduate college.
Oh no, it does. It's a contract.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
So, like, you're still having money rolling in. You still have other endorsements because of who you are, because you probably signed an NIL deal with, major companies and stuff like that. So, it's go out there and compete, man. Like, go out there and compete. Hopefully, they got the message, because a lot of that was one thing that I noticed, and part of the reason that I asked is that a lot of the people, GMs and front office guys that were at the combine that had interviews were like, I don't know why these guys aren't out here competing. Like, you're taking an opportunity away from somebody else. We talk so much about how they have to do an HBCU combine. Like, I'm sure all of those guys would love to just come to the regular combine instead of just sitting at home while you're not doing shit to compete.
We had one guy, Montgomery, Senior Bowl standout, didn't get an invite. Why? Because you got all these receivers here, but they didn't do shit. A lot of them didn't. A lot of them didn't do the 40. Some of them didn't even do the regular drills. I mean, Tyson just sitting there standing. And I understand that he's expected to be in the first receiver taken. Jordan Tyson do nothing but bench press. The fuck it, like, come on, bro. Like, come on, dog. What?
I don't know. Like I said, like, people, I've never known no athlete that, that felt that they was like that they didn't want to show it off. So, I don't know. Got to start questioning you guys. But that gives us a wrap for another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. Next week will be a very interesting week, obviously, with the NFL free agency starting. So by the time we catch y'all next week, there will definitely be a lot more player movement. So I'm excited to see where everybody goes, and we'll catch you then.
Yes, sir.